Imagine this. You get the notification from your teenager's school meal app, and it tells you what you already suspected. 2 chocolate muffins and a chocolate milkshake for lunch. And you already know what's coming next. He won't eat when he gets home from school, and he only likes really beige food anyway. When you open his backpack to help him find something later, inside you find dozens of crumpled biscuits, crisps and sweet wrappers stuffed in between the bits of paper and the books. Never mind, you don't have to imagine. Let me show you. This is what one day sugar intake could look like for my teen. Now, as a mum, I was really worried, stressed, and of course, feeling guilty. But as a nutritionist, I was mortified. This was giving me imposter syndrome. How could I realistically give clinical advice about healthy eating with this happening in my own home? But none of the things I was trying were working. I started asking myself, what was wrong with him? Was it sugar addiction? Was it my fault? And then, in 2021, my son was diagnosed with ADHD. He was 17. So, now I had this new information to process and research. And as I did, I began to make connections. And I started to realise that this wasn't about greed or laziness or parenting. This was about dopamine and brain chemistry and executive functions. This was a young neurodivergent person trying to self-regulate the only way he knew how at the time. Now, before I go any further, let me explain what I mean and provide some caveats. Not everybody with ADHD is binging on sugar. But there does exist a link between ADHD and impulsive, compulsive behaviour. Simply put, if you have ADHD, you may be more likely to struggle with impulsive eating, cravings, and food-seeking behaviour than if you don't have ADHD. But why would that be? It's because, at its core, ADHD has a dopamine regulation issue. Now, dopamine's gained popularity recently. It's having its moment as the reward molecule. But it's far more than that. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter of motivation, of drive, of focus. It tells us what's interesting, what's worth paying attention to, what's worth noticing. In the context of food, it works by saying, get up, go out, find food, and giving a big well done when we do. And then it works by saying, hey, remember that thing you did when you went out and you found the food and it felt good? You need to go and do it again, and I'll remind you how good it felt. And then we have a habit in place. And it does this not just for fun or because it can. It does it to ensure our very survival. Now, let's go back to that backpack and how dopamine's linked to those chocolate bars. Food, in its essence, is there for nourishment, for sustenance, for energy. Our modern food is filled with high sugar containing foods everywhere, enticing us. And sugar isn't just sweet, it's exciting. It's fast. It gives a quick burst of dopamine, a temporary hit of energy, focus, pleasure. And it's not just the sugar, it's the shiny packaging. It's the anticipation of reward. It's the brand new flavour, the little toy hiding inside the packet, or the buy one, get one free. And dopamine loves all this novelty. Dopamine loves shiny. It loves new. And this is why my son wasn't just eating sugar, he was seeking it. And then he was habitually seeking it. Now let's rewind a minute. In fact, let's go way back. For most of our 250,000 or so years on this planet, humans had to rely on what the earth provided us with for food. And it would have been a tough job for our ancestors being human. We don't have thick fur, we don't have big sharp teeth or claws. By all logic, it shouldn't have taken too long for predators to wipe us out. But we survived. In fact, we thrived to go on to become the alpha predator on our own planet. And we did this because of our brain, because of our ability to outthink, outsense, outmaneuver. Let's imagine for a second we're on a prehistoric hunting party. Now, you're going to want somebody in your group with a special set of skills. We're out to fish, hunt for small mammals, forage for vegetation. We've travelled far and wide. We have to keep moving or we'll perish. You'll want somebody in your group who is constantly scanning the horizon for threats, alert for predators, aware of the slightest rustle in the grasses. Someone who's quick to react, able to take risks, always seeking. Sound familiar? These ADHD traits, hyper-awareness, novelty-seeking, impulsivity, these wouldn't have been flaws. These would have been advantages. And yet today, we no longer hunt. We are provided for. We are fed. We work in cubicles. We sit in classrooms. We gaze at screens. And for my son and my husband and many people with ADHD, their brains can really struggle with these modern developments. Because when you have a brain that's wired for seeking, placed in an environment that won't let it seek, it can find other ways to fill that gap. For my son at that time, it was sugar. For my entrepreneur husband, it was working long hours or late night binges. And at one point, for about 6 weeks, it was perfecting apple pie. He made about 34. And yes, the first one was the best. For somebody else, it might be scrolling or gambling or shopping or risky behaviour. But the mechanism is always the same. The brain is seeking. So that's why when a worried parent comes to me in clinic because they're finding chocolate wrappers stuffed in a bag or under a bed, or a perimenopausal woman is utterly overwhelmed and constantly reaching for sweets, or a late diagnosed high achieving entrepreneur can't have just one biscuit, it has to be the whole packet, or 2 packets, or 3. We don't blame the biscuit or the parent, and we don't feel shame or guilt. Instead, we ask, what is my brain seeking, and how can I help it find stimulation in a constructive way? How can I learn to recognise and regulate my emotions? What helped for my son was having what he wanted, sugar, alongside what he needed, protein and fibre. It was helping him learn to understand his cravings instead of feeling ashamed of them. It was bringing fun and novelty to his day so that sugar wasn't the only thing lighting up his brain. Because ADHD isn't the problem to be fixed. It's a brain wired for creativity, for curiosity, finding ways to cope in a neurotypical world. Now, getting diagnosed, understanding and reframing ADHD didn't instantly transform our family, but it did set us on the path to understanding. And this really matters, because low dietary diversity and high sugar intake can lead to a host of health issues, from obesity to diabetes. And addressing these patterns is about more than just improving physical health. It's about creating a caring, compassionate environment that recognises the unique challenge that somebody may be facing. Now, my entrepreneur husband no longer relies on binging to light up his brain. In fact, following his diagnosis, he got his black belt in Taekwondo, age 51. And he started a hobby he'd always wanted to: beekeeping. Now, of course, he still has ADHD. So in no time at all, we went from 1 to 18 beehives. And my wonderful son now only has sugar in moderation and when he wants to. In fact, he's now an excellent amateur chef. This, of course, means that we have every single piece of kitchen equipment and shiny new gadget on the market. Shout out to online marketplaces. And it also means I spend a disproportionate amount of time on kitchen cleanup duty. But it's totally worth it for his signature creamy Tuscan salmon with grilled asparagus and toasted almonds. And as a nutritionist and a mother who now sees her family through a new lens, I've realised that food is never just about food. It's about biochemistry. It's about survival. It's about connection. And it needs to be about care and compassion.